YouTube, this is Grovy Rose, and I like to welcome you to the first installment of a series I like to call Blabbering Blorbos, where I refuse to shut the hell up about fictional characters I like for an undisclosed amount of time. Okay, so jokes aside, this is going to be a podcast-like series, mostly unscripted, and as the title implies, we'll have a lot of blabbering from yours truly. So yes, feel free to tab over and just listen if you like. There won't really be too much going on screen unless you just want to watch an anime girl talk for a while, which if you do, I won't blame you. I know I'm adorable. Okay, but yes, let's get started. And for today's first episode, we will be looking at a character very near and dear to my heart. Her name is Dr. Mei-Ling Zhou, and she is from the video game Overwatch. So if you don't know what Overwatch is, number one, I envy you. But number two, I will provide you a quick little summary so you can get caught up. Overwatch is a first-person team shooter developed by Blizzard Entertainment and Team 4. Overwatch is set in a sci-fi world about 60 years into the future, following an event known as the Omnic Crisis. This occurred when a god AI program called Anubis overrode the systems of all the helper robots known as Omnics and ordered them to kill all of humanity. To combat this threat, the United Nations formed a strike team of fighters from around the world called Overwatch, and together with a noble sacrifice of a sentient Omnic named Aurora, Omnics were given sentience and humanity was saved from annihilation at Anubis' hands. Overwatch, post-war, became a global peacekeeping organization, but as the years went on, corruption and rogue elements within the organization caused its downfall until it all went boom in a big explosion, and Overwatch was shut down for good. Now, years later, the former Overwatch agent Winston sees the world needs help more than ever, and he recalls the former Overwatch heroes to come together once again and save the world from looming threats, such as we are clearly very evil terrorist organization called Talon, and the invading Omnic extremist group called Null Sector. That's the basic plot of Overwatch. There's a lot more, but it's very long and expansive, and I cannot get into all of it today. Because today, we are focusing on my queen, my angel, my favorite Overwatch character, Mei. So, Mei is an Overwatch agent. She was around during the original organization's run. We're going to get a bit more into exactly what happened in a bit. So, let's do a quick little timeline of who Mei is as a character and what her general gist is in the story. Okay. So, starting from the beginning, Mei-Ling Zhou was born and raised in the city of Shihan in China. We don't really have a lot of info on her life pre-crisis and not a lot of info pre-Overwatch either. In-game, Mei doesn't really mention a family or relatives or really much about her life before she became a scientist. But what we do know, well, we know a few things. Doing the math with the Overwatch timeline and her age, which, let me tell you, is a little hard sometimes because we didn't get a proper timeline until the PvE missions came out. Oh, goodness. It's a rough one out here being an Overwatch lore fan, but, we do our best. Yes, but doing the math, Mei was likely around 14 years old when the Omnic Crisis broke out, so she would have probably just been in, about middle school, early high school, right around then when it happened. Unless Blizzard ever confirms anything about her family or her relatives or anywhere else where she's from, I work under the assumption that Mei is a Omnic Crisis orphan. A lot of characters in the cast are orphans after losing their families in the Omnic Crisis. Other characters who are orphans in the cast include characters like Mercy, potentially Cassidy, Sombra, Baptiste. Lots of characters in this story were impacted by the Omnic Crisis in very severe ways, and losing your family is one of them, unfortunately. It happens a lot in war. It's quite sad. So bear that in mind. What we do canonically know about Mei's past pre-Overwatch was that she eventually got her way into grad school, probably studying climatology as her specialist. If you don't know what climatology is, it's basically the science of where you study climates and how they impact the environment. So a lot of like biological science. Yes, and then during grad school, as she was studying climatology, she met one of her closest friends named Jia Hiteo, and together they did a lot together. They were very close friends, and eventually the two of them would go on to work for Luqing Interstellar together. Luqing Interstellar is a space company located in Lijiang, China. You can actually see its headquarters on the map Lijiang Tower in-game. Yes, it's a big old space organization. It's basically kind of like the NASA of Overwatch's world, if that makes sense. Yes. But eventually, Mei was recognized and recruited by Overwatch for some of her significant climate technology that she helped develop. And she was moved to the Overwatch's EcoWatch branch. Now, the EcoWatch branch of Overwatch was a branch of Overwatch as a global organization that was dedicated to ecological study and scientific progress. The main mission of EcoWatch was to study an anomaly in the atmosphere that began causing issues post-crisis. No one really knows where this anomaly came from, what's causing it, but we do know that it's severe and that it's causing strange weather phenomenons around the world. So in order to learn more about this and potentially find a solution, Overwatch set up what was called the Eco Points. They set them up in various points around the world in very extreme different climates, hoping to learn more. Mei's team was sent to Antarctica. So her and her teammates, which are Captain Opara, Taurus, Macready, Orhinis, and Adams, were her teammates, and they lived together on Eco Point Antarctica. However, things took a tragic turn when their base was trapped by a freak blizzard. They missed their resupply window, meaning they couldn't refill on their food rations or supplies, and meaning that they could potentially starve to death if something was not done soon. So in order to buy the team some time, Captain Opara had the team go into hibernation in the cryostasis chambers in the base's labs. If you don't know what cryostasis is, that's basically like when you freeze yourself. In the real world, it's a science that lacks a lot of evidence, and it's still kind of a newer science. Like, if you know the theories about Walt Disney freezing his head in a block of ice, the crazy conspiracy theories like that, then that's basically what cryostasis is. It's when you freeze something or someone with the hopes of reviving it once they unfreeze. And luckily for our Overwatch characters, cryostasis has advanced a lot since then. But unluckily in this case, oh boy, this is when we get into some of Mei's darker aspects of her backstory. So yes, unfortunately for the EcoPoint team, Overwatch was not able to rescue them. They did attempt a rescue with a ship called the Icebreaker, but the Icebreaker became trapped in the ice and the base was deemed unreachable. 9 years passed, Overwatch fell, and no one came to rescue Mei and her team. And unfortunately, Mei was the only survivor. Her story, we really see her story in the cinematic Rise and Shine. Rise and Shine is one of Overwatch's several story cinematics, and this cinematic opens with Mei waking up 9 years after cryostasis, not only to find that Overwatch is gone, but so are all her teammates. Mei is the only survivor of the team, as the rest of them sadly passed away when their cryopods malfunctioned in the 9 years. Yeah, it's I highly recommend watching that cinematic. It's very emotional and heart and full of heart. It's incredibly sad, but incredibly hopeful too. And Mei and her little drone buddy Snowball decide decide to try and repair the communications tower to receive a message from someone who could potentially help them. What we don't know until the end of the cinematic is that this message is Winston's recall message calling Overwatch agents back to duty. But before we get there, Mei and Snowball work together. Mei creates her endothermic blaster, which is basically her little ice beam that she uses in-game to freeze people. And this is something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about Mei, is that Mei is kind of the MacGyver of Overwatch. This lady, she made her freeze ray out of a hair dryer and other like knickknacks and stuff that she found around the base, which is kind of incredible. I mean, wow. Like, way to make the most out of a very bad situation. Yes, like, you know, if people try to tell you she's not smart, you show them that clip of her making a endothermic blaster out of a hair dryer, and you say, nah. nah. But yes, so eventually Mei does repair the communications tower. She receives Winston's message. She is inspired and hopeful once again, and she wants to bring the work that her team did back to the world, not only to honor them, but to hopefully finish what they had sought to achieve by figuring out the anomaly and reversing its effects. So, we enter a bit of a fuzzy space of Mei's timeline because we can assume, it's not really shown on screen that when this happens, but basically we can assume that after escaping the eco point and returning back to civilization, Mei meets up with Winston back at Watchpoint Gibraltar. Winston encourages her to continue her mission by reactivating the remaining eco points around the world so she can study the anomaly once more and write about her thoughts and discoveries through an online journal, which she does, and gains a bit of a following from it. I believe one of the other Overwatch heroes, Diva, is actually a fan of Mei's journal, which is really cute. That's really sweet. I love that. But yes. Yes, and then eventually we hit Overwatch 2, which takes place 2 years after Overwatch 1. Null Sector, an Omnic extremist group, has attacked Paris, and Winston, Tracer, and Mei, the only people who showed up to the recall, poor Winston, show up to Paris and try to fight off Null Sector in the cinematic 0 hour, and things get dicey. It looks like they're going to be overwhelmed, but luckily at the last minute, more of the Overwatch heroes who answered the recall show up, like Genji, Reinhardt, Brigitte, Mercy, Echo. Lots of friends return. It's very happy and hopeful, and the gang's getting back together. Where Overwatch is back, baby, woohoo! And we're gonna go fight and save the world. It's awesome. Yes, and then in the PvE missions, which tell some of the stories of Overwatch fighting Overwatch. Overwatch fighting Null Sector, pardon me. We see Mei taking part in 2 of the missions. The first is Resistance, which takes place in Rio. There they help their fellow Overwatch hero, Lucio. He is fighting Overwatch, damn it, I keep doing this. He is fighting Null Sector by himself, and he calls for help. Overwatch shows up, they help kick robot butt, and the day is saved. And then we move on to Liberation, a much darker mission than the first one. This one takes place in Toronto. The gang meets up with former Overwatch captain Vivian Chase, also known as Sojourn. Null Sector is on the brink of taking over Toronto. There are many civilians still trapped in the city. Omnics are getting kidnapped and subjugated by Null Sector. It's very dark. It's kind of scary too. But yes, Mei takes part in that mission. Yeah, so, and that's a little bit about where we get on the main plot because, well, if you know Overwatch, you know not only does the story move at a snail's pace, but PvE missions eventually kind of got canceled. So we're still waiting to see how they're going to continue that story. Fingers crossed that we get it someday. We're, you know, like I said before, it's tough to be an Overwatch lore fan, but we do our best. But yes, the additional story beat for Mei that occurred not too long ago came with the introduction of the hero Juno. Juno is an astronaut. She is the first and only Martian. She was born on Mars after Liu Cheng Interstellar sent a secret mission to Mars called the Red Promise. Their goal was to make a colony on Mars. And Jia He, Mei's longtime friend, and her husband went to Mars, and that's where they had Juno, the first ever Martian. Things were all hunky-dory until the day that the storms on Mars began to get worse. Not only that, they eventually lost contact with Liu Cheng Interstellar and had no way to get back to Earth altogether. Their supplies are running low, and things are looking bad. So in order to save her daughter, Jia He, and the Mars team create a spaceship for Juno to fly to Earth, Juno is determined to come back one day and save them. And, I'm rooting for her. You go, girl. You can do it. And she does this by going to Earth and meeting Jia He's closest and oldest friend, Mei. Mei steps up. Juno lands on Earth. She's found by Overwatch. She meets up with Mei. Mei kind of takes her in as her own, kind of steps up to be her protector and caretaker and help her get used to Earth and help her try to find a way to rescue her family from Mars. It's very sweet. Juno actually calls Mei Auntie Mei, which is really cute. In a lot of cultures, especially Asian cultures, auntie is a term that you use for women older than you that you respect. So it doesn't always have to be like your biological aunt. Sometimes if you know an older woman in your life, you call her auntie because that's your elder and you respect your elders. So that's kind of why that's like the title for Mei when it comes to Juno. It's very cute though. Mei clearly has a lot of affection and care for Juno as her oldest friend's daughter. She wants to help her. She wants to stay optimistic and complete both of their missions. It's all very sweet. Juno is eventually going to get her own episode one day, I'm sure, because I also love Juno. Yes, but yeah, that's kind of about where we're at with Mei's storyline in the current Overwatch plot. I'm sure we're probably going to get more plot at some point, and then this video will be outdated, as it always goes when I make anything Overwatch related, but you do what you gotta do. Okay, so yeah, now that we have gone over her timeline, let's talk about the reasons why I love her. Okay, so you're probably asking, Grovy Rose, why is Mei your favorite character? Out of this big old cast of Overwatch, which is at about 44 heroes now, I believe. Yeah, big number. Why, out of all 44 heroes, soon to be 45, is Mei your favorite? Well, and I'll answer that. Mei is my favorite character, not just because she's one of the first characters I got to know and I play a lot when I play Overwatch, but also on a narrative level. I think Mei is the character she's one of the characters who best embodies the main messages and themes of Overwatch. And one of these themes is the power of optimism and determination even in dark times. Overwatch is an optimistic sci-fi future that has a lot of hope for humanity, unlike a lot of other sci-fi stories. But it is a story about what can happen, the good that can happen, when people, no matter who they are or where they're from, come together and fight together for a good cause. And I think Mei embodies that message very strongly. She is one of the most kind and open members of the new Overwatch. She's very cheerful, she's very optimistic. All of that despite her very dark past. Not only is Mei the sole survivor of her team, but she lost 9 years of her life. Really think about that. How traumatic that would be for a person. We do see hints and pieces of her trauma in some interactions and in some dialogue in the game. She doesn't like to talk about it very much, but if you go onto some of the maps of Antarctica or you listen to certain dialogues of their characters, you learn that she is still very much grieving her team, but doing her best to move forward in their honor. It's sad, but also very touching. And I think that's one thing to really admire about Mei, is that despite the trauma, despite the darkness she's faced, she is still looking for a better day. And that's something that is so important in life, because some people might think that optimism is naive, but I am of the opinion personally that optimism is a strength, because optimism is not just born out of ignorance. Optimism is born from having faith in the goodness of the world and of other people. Because the world can be a very shitty place. I'm sure everyone knows that. Well, at least I hope you know that sometimes the world can be a very shitty place sometimes, because boy, can it be. But there's still a lot more good than bad in the world, and that is where optimism comes from. Knowing that even in the worst of times, you can always find pockets of light, and you can always move towards a better day. And Mei is the embodiment of that message. She wants her work in climatology is for the betterment of future generations. She wants the world to still be around for the future generations. She wants humanity to still have a home. She wants the world to still be the world. And that, I think, is so admirable. I also really like how, because she is one of the kindest characters in the cast, she is often the one who can almost kind of break through the walls of some of the more stiffer characters, if that makes sense. For example, let's take a character like Hanzo, for example. Hanzo, to give a brief summary about him, he is a lone, mysterious archer with a very dark past, very broody, kind of negative, very negative, but he's getting better. But there's a really sweet interaction between him and Mei, where Mei notices that he is whittling wood. Mei compliments him, saying that she admires his craft. Hanzo gets nervous and hesitant, saying that he doesn't think he's that good at it. Mei kindly offers the option to practice carving with ice, and Hanzo's just like, okay. It's very cute. The interactions aren't always considered canon in Overwatch lore, but I consider them a bit canon. They're very sweet, though. But yeah, Mei is able to sometimes break through the walls of some of the more hardened characters just by being her sweet, kind self, which is something I adore, because it really speaks to the power of positivity, kindness, and empathy. And you know, empathy is also, like optimism, it's something that can often be dismissed as being naive or ignorance, but in reality, empathy is one of our greatest tools as people. The ability to understand and empathize with other people is so crucial, especially when times get dark. Understanding that humans are flawed beings with emotions and struggles is one of the most important things to remember, so that you don't lose sight of your own humanity or the humanity of other people. And Mei, as one of the most empathetic and kind characters in Overwatch, is a strong contender for the symbol of that message. She is usually very kind and open to other people. There are a few exceptions. She's not fond of people she deems bullies. She's not very fond of characters like Junkrat or Roadhog or Reaper, which, they commit literal crimes and cause a lot of damage, so you can't really blame her on that. But for others, she is willing to give them chances. She is willing to be open and friendly to them. She's willing to get to know them, see the good in them, which is so important. It's so important. And I think that's one of her greatest strengths. And if we see more of her in the story, I really hope the story can highlight that strength. Yeah. Okay, and another core message I think Mei really exemplifies in Overwatch's cast is the message that heroes can come from anywhere. Overwatch as a cast is very varied and diverse. We have heroes from all over the world, from all walks of life, and a big thing about Overwatch's cast is that it's almost basically a cast of superheroes, if that makes sense. Sometimes I jokingly call Overwatch Blizzard's Justice League, because it kind of has that vibe sometimes. But yeah, you have a lot of super-powered people in Overwatch. I mean, Winston's a talking gorilla, Tracer's a time traveler, you have Hanzo and Genji who can shoot dragons from their arms. Don't ask me how that works. I could not tell you. But and then we also have characters like Sojourn and Doomfist, who are these very competent fighters with these really awesome sci-fi cybernetic augmentations. We have characters who have gone through mutations. We have characters who have these gravity-defying powers like Sigma. It's a big cast of super people, which is awesome. But Mei is kind of a standout because she's one of the more ordinary members of Overwatch. She's not a superhero, she's not a time traveler, she's not like a mega super ultra genius. She's just a very smart scientist who happens to be very good with tools and creative and kind and open, and that's what makes her powerful. It really goes to show that even if you consider someone or yourself to be ordinary, you can always make a difference by remaining open, by remaining kind, by realizing your strengths and using them to help others. You can still do amazing things. And I think that's a core message of Overwatch, and Mei exemplifies that greatly. So yeah, I mean, and of course, another reason I love her, it's a very superficial reason, but my goodness, I love her design. She is adorable. Like, if you're looking at the screen right now, you can get a good look at her here. Look at her, she's so dang cute. I love her glasses. I love her snowflake patterns in her outfits. I love her hair. I just love how much her design reflects her personality. It's such a great design, so animated and lively. It's awesome. So yeah, I mean, those are just kind of the major reasons I love Mei as a character and why she's my favorite. Okay, so I guess I will end the video with some fun facts about Mei. Just some kind of fun random trivia facts. So, according to the Overwatch art book, Mei was originally conceptualized as a hero called Frostbite. The original idea and concept was a Canadian hero who was going to be a bounty hunter that would freeze her targets with ice. You know, pretty badass, but I am kind of glad they changed directions with Mei's character a bit. This is just a theory of mine, but I have a suspicion that some of those early concepts for Mei were carried over into Freya. Freya is one of the newer heroes. She is Danish, and she is a bounty hunter, or a former Overwatch agent bounty hunter. And you can kind of see a lot of the design aspects from Mei's original design kind of carried over into Freya. She's a bounty hunter, she's winter-themed in her design. She doesn't freeze people like Mei does, but she does have a very wintry theme going on, and her deal is she is very good at trapping people. So I think that's pretty neat. Another fun fact about Mei is that back in 2019, she was a symbol of the Free Hong Kong protests that were occurring in Hong Kong. I won't go too deep into that because that is a very sensitive topic that I do not feel experienced or knowledgeable enough about to really go into that, but just know that heroes can be the symbol for other heroes, and I think that's really cool. And my final fun fact is that if you look on one of Mei's maps, which is Eco Point Antarctica, it's an arcade map. It's the base where the cinematic Rise and Shine takes place on. You can see several references to, ironically enough, the 1980s film The Thing by John Carpenter. If you don't know what that is, it's a horror movie, not for the faint of heart. Don't watch it if you're squeamish. But it's a horror movie about a group of Arctic scientists who get terrorized by a shape-shifting alien that can consume and pretend to be other people. It's a very scary movie. I love it, but it's terrifying. But yes, you can see a couple references to that movie on the map. One of the big references is if you look in the window of one of the lab rooms, you can see what looks to be a giant block of ice. In the movies, the thing was found frozen in the Arctic, carved out, and then eventually kind of melted its way out of the ice, and that's when it started eating people. So luckily that didn't happen to the Eco Point crew, but it's a fun little reference. And then the other major reference to the Thing is one of Mei's teammates is named Macready. Macready is the main character in the Thing. In the Thing, he's kind of an asshole, but you know, when an alien's eating your friends, you kind of have to do what you gotta do. He's got a penchant for flamethrowers, cursing, and not trusting other people. Which, you know, we don't really know Mei's teammates that much, but I'm hoping that Overwatch Macready was a lot nicer as a person than the Thing Macready, but it's a very fun reference. Yeah, I just always thought that was really cool how one of the sweetest and cutest characters in Overwatch not only has one of the darkest backstories, but whose map references one of the most terrifying movies ever made. It's kind of hilarious in a very ironic way, and I love that. I love how big of nerds the people at Team 4 are. You can clearly tell that a lot of them are into movies and games, and they show their love in all these different little ways, and I think that's really awesome. Okay, well, that about sums it up for our first episode of Blabbering Blorbos. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to. Leave comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there are other characters you want me to look at. I do plan to make another Blabbering Blorbos episode in the near future. This time on another Overwatch character, the rough and tumble cowboy Cole Cassidy. It's high noon, folks. We will see that next time. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a nice and safe day. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a good one. See ya!